Hi, my name is Rachel Vasak. I'm with the Administrative Ethics class, Arkansas State University MPA online program. My final project this term is on whistleblowers. Are they villains or are they heroes? I chose to explore this through the case of the Challenger disaster. This is a tragedy that occurred when I was in elementary school, and to this day I vividly remember watching this unfold on live TV along with everyone else in my school and most other children across the nation. So what went wrong? Immediately after this tragedy occurred, President Reagan appointed an external review committee, which later became known as the Rogers Commission, to investigate the cause of the incident. The goal of the Rogers Commission was to find out what went wrong, likely discover that it was an accident involved with the dangers of space travel, and ultimately clear NASA of any wrongdoing. As part of this, the Navy recovered debris from the wreckage, spending millions. And ultimately, as the story unfolded, there was a group of engineers who believed that all the information wasn't necessarily being shared. So backing up, who was involved in the case of the Challenger disaster? NASA was certainly involved as the lead. The Marshall Space Flight Center was the site where the accident occurred. Two major subcontractors who'd been very involved in manufacturing parts and piecing together the shuttle itself included Morton Thiokol and Rockwell International. The Rogers Commission, which I mentioned earlier, is the group that was investigating the tragedy. And there was a group of engineers who had been very involved, in fact, intimately involved in the manufacturing process, who had some concerns. So what went wrong? Engineers who stepped forward shared concerns with O-rings that were not functioning properly in freezing temperatures. And indeed, as the story unfolded, this group, led by this fellow pictured here, came forward and shared concerns the evening before launch and even the morning of launch. And when they found out that the investigation wasn't focusing on those concerns, they stepped forward to share that those concerns actually did exist and had been brought to the attention of the decision makers associated with the launch. So how did we learn this truth? We learned it through whistleblowing. And when Roger Bielski came forward, along with several other engineers, they talked to their supervisors. The changes that they had wanted weren't happening. And then when the investigation occurred, it was clear that perhaps some leaders were trying to sweep things under the rug or minimize them or chalk it up to the dangers of space travel. And that's when Roger, as well as several others, Bob Ebling to name one, came forward to the press. Initially, they asked to remain anonymous, but after a period of time, several of those engineers actually shared their names. The reality, though, is that we wouldn't have learned the truth if those whistleblowers hadn't stepped forward. I believe that safety is an ethical issue and that the engineers who had concerns, significant concerns in fact, about the safety of the launch, owed it to themselves and particularly their colleagues to step forward. And where I find extreme disappointment is that the leaders, the decision makers who ultimately were in charge of calling the flight or not, didn't listen to them. And that's where I see an ethical breakdown. In the end, my conclusion is that whistleblowers are neither villains or heroes, but they might need superheroes to protect them. While there are laws in place to protect whistleblowers, it's clear from this case and others that I investigated that whistleblowers still often incur significant ramifications when they choose to blow the whistle. I believe it's still the right thing to do, and I hope over time we can all realize that there is much to be gained when we all exercise high ethical morals. Thank you so much.